So William, entrepreneur, psychologist, and ex-Buddhist monk. I've never got to say that in the same sentence. It would be great if you could start by just introducing yourself.
Sure. William Jackson, yes, as you said, psychologist, former Buddhist monk, and the founder of Skilful, which is an organization where we do a lot of things, but most recently, we are helping sort of transform work culture, integrating mindfulness, emotional resilience, growth mindset stuff into organizations to make them a healthy place to work. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I know you've had a full path and have many positions that you filled in the past. So I think this will be an interesting conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, so I'd like to understand, like, how did it all start out for you? So, like, how was your school experience? And
yeah, sure. I mean, I struggled a bit in high school. I got into a bit of trouble here and there, and I think it was just being a kid, probably with ADHD, and I needed to get out and do something outside of school. When I needed to, I could buckle down, but I really started developing relationships. That was important to me, friendships and having deeper friendships. And a lot of that was also, even at that time, I was just trying to understand how people worked and was exploring in different ways of understanding my own motivations and what it meant to be alive and pursue something and understand my interests and what it was all about, trying to get to the meaning of life. I remember even being like 8 years old and watching DuckTales on cartoon, and they were on the search for the meaning of life, and I was like, wow, yeah, what is the meaning of life? So it was always exciting to me to pursue that direction. And growing up with kung fu TV shows and some sort of meditative Zen things always caught my attention. But yeah, what I was good at in high school is I would do impressions and characters to entertain my friends. And actually, in high school, more people knew the characters I did and the character's name than my name. And so that's how I got people's attention at a young age. And one of the chorus teachers, he said, wow, I think you have something here. Like, why don't I start a theater class at the high school and you can join the theater class? Because he knew I was struggling in some other ways, and maybe it was a way to wrangle me. And so I then started taking that theater class. One thing led to another, and I auditioned for a private high school. And that high school sort of, was a performing arts high school. Luckily, I could go there as a day student. That got me sort of a scholarship into college, and I pursued sort of a BFA in college. And that was still, theater was an exploration into how the mind and body work, how people worked, what motivated them. And I got to play my different characters and that sort of thing, which was exciting. And the life of an actor also is a little bit wild and unruly, and that sort of fit for me for a bit. And at that time, we were studying Shakespeare in England, and I was in a Christian missionary, and there was a book in their library from the Dalai Lama that said, "How to practice the way to a meaningful life." And I was like, meaning of life. And so I picked it up and I started reading it. And within it, it said, oh, if you practice meditation 30 minutes a day in this way, after 3 months, you'll develop calm abiding. I was like, wow, that sounds cool. All right, I'll do that. I got some time on my hands, and I started meditating and having these experiences where I understood why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And I understood why other people were feeling the way they were feeling. And all of a sudden I could memorize my lines like lickety split, and just started to understand the world in a different way. And even when I was reading books, I can remember like being able to retain the information and understand what I was reading. And at that point, it also sort of clicked like, wow, this is why I haven't been doing well in school. Like, because I couldn't even keep my attention. And the world just started to open up to me at that point in this meditation practice. And I was like, yo, friends, you got to try this. Like, and I had no idea what was happening. I was like, my mind is opening and my chakras and, and they're like, okay, like maybe we'll try a little meditation, but lay off the LSD, sort of thing. But I got really excited about that. And then I went back to school, it was my last year of college, and I ran into a monk who was giving a presentation at our school. And, through a series of interactions, I eventually spoke with him. Initially, I was resistant to it, but he said, I asked if I could come to his monastery to do a meditation retreat. And he said, oh no, you can't become a monk that easy. This was like through a translator. And I said, no, I don't want to be a monk. I just want to do a meditation retreat. And so he said, yeah, okay, you can come. And I, went through my last year of school. I actually ended up landing a manager in Los Angeles. I was supposed to audition for a couple things. And I told them, I'm going to go on this meditation retreat. I'll come back afterwards and then we can start up. And I'm going to do a 3-month meditation retreat. So I went on that 3 months, turned into 5 months. And I sent him an email saying I'm not coming back. And I shaved my head, put on the robe, and went deeper down the rabbit hole. That's how I started, as a monk. And eventually sort of it translated to other things. But I keep going if you want.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep going and get there. I'm curious, like you said, about it helped you felt you could learn your lines quicker and retain more information, like, and ADHD, keeping your memory. There seems to be a link between the meditation. That'd be more interesting to hear about that.
Yeah. So, and as I've become a psychologist and done, research, and my dissertation was on meditation, and I keep up, with the brain science. I mean, ultimately, you can think about if you're practicing what's called samatha meditation or focused attention meditation, where you have one object of awareness, like the feeling of the breath, right? You notice when your mind goes away, you bring your attention back. You notice when the mind goes away, bring your attention back. It's like, building muscles for the mind. Ultimately, what you're exercising there is sort of your prefrontal cortex, which is this executive functioning, your ability to give your attention to something. And when you give your attention to something, you are ultimately holding that thing in your mind. So this is also working memory. So you think of it as like RAM on your computer. It's the ability to hold information and compare that information with other things, either in real time, in the past, put those things together. How does it relate to this? How does it relate to that, that? I mean, to do that, you have to push other things out of your mind, right? So if I want to think about the sensation in my right big toe, I have to push away like my to-do list later and another feeling that I'm having in my body or something I want to say, and just pay attention to the sensation in my right big toe. So that is, our executive functioning. That, I didn't know that was something that you could exercise. But, as I've practiced meditation, as I learned myself, when I started practicing, I couldn't focus on 5 breaths in a row. Feel just the sensation of the breath without any of their thoughts. And most people, when they start practicing meditation, are between, the capacity to focus on 5 breaths in a row and 10. That's normal human sort of attention span in the 2020s, right? And when I started practicing meditation and I got deeper into it, I could keep my attention on the sensation of the breath for 3 hours in a row. So when you think about the capacity, the strength, I don't know, whatever 100x that is, in one's ability to hold something in one's awareness for a long period of time, it really changed my perception of the world. So when I read a book now, with my working memory expanded, I wasn't just comparing one piece of information. I could hold 3 pieces of information in my mind and compare and contrast them. And, your ability to understand the world to a greater degree. You can make a comparison to AI, for example. Like you talk about parameters of AI, like, oh, this one does like 1 billion parameters and this one has 2 billion. I don't really know what that means. I just know that like the more parameters you have, the more accurately you can predict what somebody can say next or whatnot. So in that same sense, when you expand your own working memory, your ability to understand the world, how things work, your own emotional life, anything, and to burn that into your mind, so to speak, to hold it in long enough that it goes into long-term memory, that really expanded. And so my access to information just exploded. In the world, it just became so much more exciting to me. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
completely, yeah. I think it's so interesting because we never learn how to learn. We never really learn anything about how the brain works. And then you're saying you've learned this thing, meditation. It sounds like it's been like a cheat code. It's like,
yeah,
maybe that's what we need in schools when we're younger, is everyone taught about meditation and spaced repetition and how to actually learn.
Yeah. And I came back from my meditation retreat and I just pleaded with my family, friends. I said, please, just one time in your life for a month, meditate for an hour a day. Do this simple exercise of coming back to the breath for an hour a day. First 2 weeks is going to be really hard. After that, it gets easier. But you will be shocked at what your mind is capable of doing. There's so many things that I just thought were hardwired in, I realized were choices. I could choose to just be happy. I could choose to focus my attention not on things that created anxiety, but things that actually moved me towards my values and what was important to me, and a sense of ease.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's like, for instance, when I hear about meditation and then I've tried it, it's quite great, but the problem is when you first hear of meditation, it's almost as if like it's some like Asian Eastern concept and it's different and it's got a different connotation and it's hard to get people to want to do it. Do you find that? Or
Oh yeah. I mean, when I came back, my head was shaved. I was wearing a big, long brown robe. I still have burn marks in, my scalp, which is a story in itself. But, and here I am, I'm going to go and tell the doctors and friends and like, CEOs of organizations, like, this is how you should behave. Well, no, they're not going to, unless they're like really out on the fringe, they're not going to necessarily listen to what I have to say. But I knew I had something. I'm like, I have to share this with people. This is such important information. Like I found the path. This is the stuff that you're all looking for. So how do I get myself in a position where people actually listen to what I have to say? And so I went back to school to become a doctor. I went to school to get a PhD, just to lend some credence to me teaching meditation and to find a way in which I can express what I've learned in a language that people will understand.
I can imagine that for sure. Yeah, people will be much more receptive to a psychologist with letters after the name than somebody in a Buddhist monk's outfit and a bald head or a hippie. Yeah. So yeah, tell me more about like your transformation to becoming a psychologist.
Yeah, it was. I expected that I was going to learn. In some ways, I expected I was going to learn a lot more than I did, just about how the mind worked. And the more that I studied, the more I found that people in the psychology profession were interested in learning about meditation, were revered sort of also the work that I had already done in some of my past in practicing, meditation and these exercises. So most of the situations I went into, even in college, I was teaching meditation at the school. And after I graduated, and I was still teaching meditation just as a psychologist, and then started to integrate meditation and psychotherapy. So there are a couple methodologies I think that are really helpful to prepare people to go deeper. So, if somebody has a trauma background, if somebody's dealing with major symptoms like OCD or anxiety disorders or depression, there's a lot of psychological interventions that can get somebody stabilized in a space where they could practice meditation to go deeper. And I think, I really think about meditation like, yes, it can help with anxiety reduction. It can help with reduction of depressive symptoms. And it can help with sleep disorders, chronic pain, all sorts of other things, right? There's documented research around how helpful that it can be with medical, diagnoses. However, it also spans the domain into wellness, into, well, what if I want to function at a capacity that's higher than average rather than lower than average? So you get somebody in a place where they can start meditating, say they have minor anxiety, well, they could get to a place where they feel less anxiety and less self-conscious than most people, more than the average. And that's really exciting to me. Within our organization, so we have a company, Skilful Means. Skilful Means was like sort of the Buddha's way. In Buddhism, skillful means the word upaya is the skillful ways in which the Buddha taught the way to enlightenment. And meaning he would recognize sort of the individual and their capacity, and he would find a skillful way to explain, a skillful, unique way to explain the path to that individual. And so we really sort of try to hold on to that mission. And whether it's working with athletic teams and using the language that they need, whether it is working with corporations, whether I'm in a yoga studio, each situation requires sort of a different approach, a different language, so to speak, to that audience to take them sort of further along that path to, understanding more about their emotional life, understanding about how their mind works, and moving to that place of greater well-being. And so that's what's been exciting to me as a psychologist, is the integration into culture of these sort of ancient techniques.
And what was it that made you change from psychology to starting a business?
Well, to take you back a little bit, I was when I started doing retreats when I was a monk in Myanmar. So at the Pa Oak Forest Monastery in Burma. And if you want to learn sort of the way they practice during the Buddha's time, like you go to Burma, like that's the place to go. And so I did a 3-month retreat, and I was in my second retreat, which was a 6-month retreat. And you're meditating 10, 14 hours a day. And I'm like, going for enlightenment. I'm like, I'm trying to do all the things and the stages of, meditation, and I'm practicing really hard. I'm eating 2 meals a day, one at 5 a.m., one at 10 a.m., and fasting and just meditating. And when you're meditating that much, you have time to like eat, sleep, and pee, and then you just meditate. It's like, there's not much more than that. And so I'm pushing so hard as a celibate monk. And in one of my deepest meditations, I sort of come out of the meditation just refreshed and clear. And I had the realization at that moment that I wanted to have a family. And I was like, shit. Because
big issue there, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I've gone so hard in this one direction of, creating, running along this path towards enlightenment and being a meditation teacher and a monk. And this was just totally contradictory, as I thought at the time. But it was just so core. I just landed on something that was like so core to what I wanted in my life as a human being. Like I wanted the experience of having family. So what do you do with that? If you're going to have a family, you need to and at least in my conception, I needed to be able to provide for a family, and I need to find a partner and somebody that I could actually spend my, life with, or at least a good portion of my life with, And so I thought that's one of the reasons I went back to school for psychology, so I could create a livelihood and actually get paid to meditate and teach meditation. And then I found somebody, a partner who had a similar want, had a similar path, a meditation experience. They wanted to create and share this experience with other people of developing insight. And it was actually during COVID, right before COVID. So I had taught meditation classes and courses and give presentations and that sort of thing. But during COVID, early COVID, she had said, "Hey, why don't you put your meditation courses online?" And, I'd never done that before. So I recorded courses and I found like a platform and I put it up online. It was like crickets. I think one person signed up, right? So then I hired some consultants and spent a bunch of money, like try to figure out how to do all this in a way where I could get the message out and in a different way. And I, filled the course. And it was this sort of online course. It was like hybrid where there were videos and live courses, and I had a great experience. In my clients, the people who joined had a great experience as well. They wanted to continue practicing, so we started like an ongoing group after that, and then I did another course and another course, and then a friend of mine who's like the Mindfulness for Kids guy said, "Hey, can you teach me to do what you're doing, like these online courses?" And I said, "Sure." And then another friend was like, "Hey, I've seen you've been doing this thing. Can you show me how to do it?" And all of a sudden, like, I had a business. And I was like taking a percentage of these different things and learning how to put courses online and learning about target audiences and marketing and sales. And I had to learn how platforms fit together and how to do my taxes for a business and, what different business structures there are, and having a lawyer draw contracts and that sort of thing. And it was exciting, that whole sort of run. But then, it started to dry up a little bit, and I realized like a lot of this depended on just my relationship, and I didn't have a way to reliably bring in new talent. I didn't think about scaling. And as I looked more at the model, I even went through a startup sort of incubator. And as I learned more and more, the model that I had wasn't going to scale. And so I had to I sort of retreated and I let go of a lot of my clients, and I had to, with help from my wife, we sort of rejiggered it in a way that would be scalable. And then we decided we were going to do a mindful entrepreneur program where we're just going to teach other people how to do this themselves, what we did. And we started building that out. In the meantime, and we started building courses for people who wanted to learn how to build courses and communities and that sort of thing. Rather than doing it all for them, we were going to teach them how to do that themselves. And that worked for a little while. But all the while doing all these courses, I was being asked by some of my clients. I have a number of like CEOs or people hired in organizations, and they were asking me, "Hey, this mindfulness, emotional resilience stuff, can you come in and teach my staff?" And so I was like, "Okay." And then I would build a little course or a presentation for them. And then I'd build another one for somebody else. And then somebody's like, "Oh, I heard from so-and-so that you did a presentation on this. Can you do that for our organization?" Before I knew it, I had a bunch of courses for organizations, and they were paying a lot better, and there were more people showing up for them. So in terms of like me spreading the word, it was access to more people. I was making more money from that. And so then we pivoted again. And that's sort of where we are right now and we're starting to grow a team. We actually are making enough where we can start to hire people. And that has been really exciting, and it gives us an opportunity when you have a little bit more money. Wow, you can really focus in on caring for this target audience better and thinking about what other problems are they facing that I can help to solve and make their life easier. And with this, we can affect a larger population, like a whole organization, and change the culture of an organization, which is really exciting. To be a part of that. And that's how, that's really how we slowly grew.
I know you said obviously you had some companies coming through, you wanted emotional resilience training. Like, how's the demand for that?
Yeah, I mean, we continue growing. We're servicing more and more organizations. Where it's still relatively new. We've only been doing this for about a year, really, um, and it's allowed us to continue building new products. And people ask for sort of custom workshops, and each time somebody asks for a custom workshop, we have a chance to expand our offerings. Uh, And it's enough where we now have a custom app that we've sort of started building out, which people have access to, which makes it just a more fun experience. We're doing these challenges, meditation challenges, which sounds sort of funny, but it's actually a lot of fun. Where the challenge is really just participation and sharing your experience with other people, uh, which is exciting. And I think we're in a unique place because the only other competitors sort of within this space, I mean, there are a number of other ones, but um, they really went down the route of not saying mindfulness, not saying meditation, of being either very clinical or very like coachy. And we're different. We're about sort of insight. We don't shy away from saying meditation. We don't shy away from mindfulness or emotion. We actually really try to draw that out in people and in conversations, and create a space where that is safe. Um, and Yeah, we're also in this unique place because I'm a psychologist. A lot of people have sort of wellness dollars, that organizations get wellness dollars from their insurance companies, and that's pretty exciting for us because they can use those because it's a wellness initiative. It's mental health, and mindfulness is this nice bridge between mental health and sort of you can go all the way to leadership training, where people are looking to become more aware and actually excel in an area rather than just manage a symptom. And so we can actually we can span a large population, which is exciting.
And is it hard to sell this sort of thing? Do people take a lot of convincing, or is it the sort of customers you go after, the ones that are open to this? Or
Yeah, I mean, the sale's pretty quick. I think once people, those people who reach out are generally open. Um, and sometimes they want me to sell it from a mental health perspective to their organization, and others are just all about, hey, let's do a meditation class, once a week. Can you set that up and have somebody come in for us? And they're, really excited about that and don't shy away from it at all. Um, and But I'm usually on a call with. Sometimes it's a leader within an organization if it's a smaller company, but a lot of times I'm on the phone with HR or a broker, and they already understand the need and the demand of mental health services. And I think people would rather sit through doing a meditation and insight oriented thing that's kind of fun rather than just like talking about depression and anxiety. So the sales, they're like, oh, good, something fresh. And it sounds like it's a little bit more fun. And we don't just have to talk about like risk mitigation and suicide prevention. You know what I mean? So I think that's exciting for people. And the sale generally goes pretty quickly.
yeah, I can definitely imagine. I think it's definitely a better sell if you're being taught meditation in a fun way by someone who's practiced it around the world and got experience in psychology, rather than, like you say, talking about the dangers of mental health, suicide prevention, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the sort of like dual degree, so to speak, of, I have a background as a monk, which is, 6 years is, it's like a PhD program, and also the psychology. I think I can span sort of both worlds in a way.
What would you say the most challenging thing about having your own business is?
Um, I think just the fact that it's, I mean, I guess the hardest thing is just not you're always on. If it's your company, it always falls back to you. I mean, if something breaks on the platform, that we're using in technology, like I need to know how it works, because it might be like on a Sunday afternoon and I can't like call, a developer and get them on right away to fix the thing. So at this point, at least where we are. So that will be me. If we have a presenter who gets sick or can't, do a presentation, like it falls back to me. And if, we don't have somebody else to do one of the sales calls, then it falls back to me. So I think where we are as a small organization, I think that's the hardest sort of part right now, is just always being on. And every time, although it's less so now, but I think more before, it was like every time I took a vacation, that just meant, those are dollars. It's not just how much the vacation costs. It's like the fact that I'm not getting on a call to make a sale or whatever it happens to be. And, I still see a couple people in private practice, and, still have other clients that I'm meeting with. But yeah, that's sort of the difficulty there.
And what are your future plans for the business? Where do you want to take it?
Yeah. So, my wife and I both, are working on the company. I think integrating her a lot more into the health and wellness realm. She has in the past worked for health insurance companies, helping them to do like wellness integration. So she helps the health insurance companies who offer wellness dollars get contractors. So she knows that whole world. And I think working with brokers, working with insurance companies, making partnerships there, I think is our next big step. And just setting ourselves up so we can actually scale to do that. I think that's been maybe the past 6 months we've been focused on that, because I think we have a pretty solid plan. We have a new sales person coming in who's helping us to plan all of that out and develop all the materials that we need. We have sort of a junior salesperson who would be following up with them. We have some executive coaches who have more experience, so we can actually hit a higher target audience, like a larger companies, more sort of like C-suite and higher management, people who have more experience and more responsibility. I think she's much more confident in doing that. She has like 20 years experience in that realm, which is exciting. And so I think that the expansion is moving off of me creating all the products, moving away from me managing all the technology, and moving away from my wife managing all the sort of sales and communication. I think we're able to sort of put a layer in there of expertise, so it's not just us building everything and putting everything out there.
And do you plan on you going down the fundraising route or bootstrapping route, or?
Yeah, we've talked about investment and that sort of thing. I think the model we have would work pretty well. I think we probably need to get a little bit further along if we were to ever take on money and just like scale. I think there is a piece where we need to know that this can work on its own, and that we have dialed in our audience and our processes and also our platforms, and say like, hey, we know we can do this, and we're confident with these numbers that we're getting, that if we pumped X number into marketing or the beginning of the funnel, that we'd come out, the equation would still work, and on the other end we'd have X number more dollars. I think we haven't quite landed there, in that we haven't gotten all the pieces of that equation quite yet. And we're still growing and, getting more clients and making more money. And so we're comfortable with the pace of growth at this point. It's sort of what we can handle in our lives right now. And I don't want to, I've made the mistake of running too fast before. and trying to get investment and get people excited about something before it was really ready. And, one thing that I am pretty good at is getting people rallied around something and excited about it. But I've made the mistake a couple times with different companies doing that too early. And then you don't have enough work for people. You don't have clear enough direction for people. You don't have, and then people lose interest. They lose excitement about it, and you lose momentum. And so I think just taking our time has been a big lesson, and I think that's what we're going to do going forward. So I'd say maybe in a year we might have a different type of conversation if we grow at what is expected, and if our sort of projections work out, I think we'd be in a place where maybe we could do something like that.
And I know you mentioned that you went into the more commercial world, so to speak, so you could make a living, have a family, move away from being a monk. Did you always have it at the back of your mind that you wanted to be an entrepreneur or start your own business one day, or?
I knew when I left being just to take you back a little bit, and all the time I'm saying to my clients, I'm saying to individuals, like one time in Burma, because I always have these stories. Those are the moments that I had sort of understanding. But one time in Burma, I was, meditating, and I realized that within myself, I have these sort of two personalities. And, one personality was like driving me forward, and, it doesn't matter if you're not meeting your own needs, or it doesn't matter if your body is giving out on you, just like keep going. And then another part of me, which was, hey, rest, take care of yourself. You don't have to push yourself so hard, that sort of thing. And I realized these were my parents, so, and it makes sense because I'm half of each of them, genetically, culturally. And I was sort of fighting between these two sort of perspectives. And as that, I think that expands out into one's career and, choices in business, or what you decide to do with your life. And I didn't, at that time, I didn't have an entrepreneurial model. I had my dad who, he was in corporate finance, and my mother was a nurse, sort of in healthcare. And it wasn't really until I became a monk that I understood sort of what entrepreneurship was. And the first Zen master that I was a student of, who I parted ways with, after a few years, but it was one of my first teachers. He ran a acupuncture clinic, and it was his monastery was sort of like a startup. It was like he took in a bunch of funding from the Vietnamese community, and they built a temple. And then he had to, invite. My job was inviting different monks from around the world to come and give talks. And then somebody else wanted to be a monk. He's like, okay, well, what are you good at? And they were like, oh, I'm good at making videos. He's like, okay, you're going to do that as a monk here. And then this person was like, what did you do when you were a monk? They're like, oh, I did graphic design. He's like, okay, you three work together, and we're going to do posters and advertisements and video record these monks, and then we'll put it on the internet. And we just grew quickly as a monastery, because he had this sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And that was like, oh, I could live life in this way too. And it was a new option as like a mentor. Taught me, hey, there's a way that you can just create something, a new path. And he used to say, when you don't know the forest, follow the well-worn paths, career choices that are already out there, what majors that you can take in college and whatnot. But when you understand the forest, he would say, then cut your own path to get where you want to go. So, and I think that's sort of what I've tried to do a bit, understand the meditation world, understand the psychology world, business world, and then start to cut my own path in a way.
So you almost had your own entrepreneurial apprenticeship whilst as a Buddhist monk, you could say.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think that's sort of the role for a mentor, in general, and how important it is to have a mentor. Because, growing up, you have these two perspectives or one perspective often. And I think it's hard to break out of that.
And how will what you've learned as a monk influence the way you teach your children?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, they'll come in the mornings, like if I'm sitting in meditation, they'll come sit with me and I'll have them take one breath with me or two, or we'll get up to 5 breaths or something. But I think just understanding one's emotional life and the importance of that, and understanding vulnerability and the importance of that. Beyond meditation, I think helping them to pursue something, as my dad said to me, he said, find something you love to do and get somebody to pay you for it. And I think I will continue to encourage them to do the same thing. For me, I found meditation, and now I have to figure out how to get somebody to pay me for that. And I think I'll encourage them to sort of do the same, but maybe acceptance and understanding there's lots of different ways that people can live. There's alternative paths that lead to happiness. I think being a monk was helpful for that, but also just travel and seeing different lives and ways people live. And I think that was hugely impactful.
What's the best place you've traveled to? Or your favorite, should I say?
Yeah, I'd say my favorite places. I loved Myanmar. Oh my goodness. Still love it. I almost died there I was there during they had a typhoon or hurricane there. While I was there, and I got typhoid and I had to go to the hospital, and it was just like total mess. But even when I was in the hospital, I'm laying there half dead, and some random woman just walked into my room. She started rubbing my feet and singing to me and brought me some food. It was just like, if you're in a hospital, wherever you live, and some random woman came in and started rubbing your feet and said, "Eat this," you'd call the police.
Jump out the bed.
Yeah. So I think that is, it was just a wonderful, I appreciated that so much, for different reasons. Lots of beautiful places that I've visited, but that was amazing. And Sri Lanka was beautiful. But yeah, just seeing different ways that people live, and the honesty that comes with sort of in countries that have been sheltered from the pressure of the United States sort of machine of achievement. I think that has been really exciting for me to see, there's a different way to live. I don't have to just go, 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 go. It's okay to relax. I don't have to feel guilty about it. I don't have to feel like a fool if I don't want to pursue or go higher or bigger and better, right? I can actually take my time and enjoy where I'm at, and not push too hard.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think when you say that, I suppose that's America's. When I think of the USA, is probably its biggest benefit, but then it can also be like a double-edged sword in a way, like the achievement culture, because you go on to achieve great things, brilliant companies. It's like land of opportunity, but like you say, you don't have to be like that in a way, and there are different ways of living. You can relax, you can enjoy life, and it doesn't all have to be about achievement.
Yeah. And I still work with at Deerfield Academy, where I'm working with. It's a private school where I'm working with students, in high school age students, which is the perfect age to start instilling some of these values and practices. And that is, that's become really important to me, and a personal mission. And it's something that I wish I had when I was in high school, is some direction and understanding about inner life and different ways of living and values, and being within a school, which is, probably a lot of these people are going to be leaders as they grow up. To be able to make that influence at this time is where, people are becoming more self-aware. They are clear about their values, whatever they may be. I truly believe that that's going to create a better environment for most.
Yeah, I think it definitely creates a better environment, and it also makes you a better entrepreneur, a better business person, because you're aware of your weaknesses, you're aware of what you're good at, what you're not, where you need to improve. I think it's really interesting that you've done all these things, different things, because I think I read there's a quote by like Neville Ravikant who said no one can beat you at being you, and you go like travel the world, do these different experiences, you're constantly accumulating data and different like ways of life, culture, methods of learning, and that allows you to generate new ideas, start new businesses, do these things. So it's great for society. It can also be commercially very useful as well, because it offers you a new perspective in the commercial world, the business world, for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so out of all these experiences, like, is there anything that sticks out to you, like one guiding principle or a piece of advice or a book, if you read anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple. One is, Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Zen master. He was sort of the best at walking meditation. He would never rush anywhere. I never saw him rush, never. And you think this man wrote like over 100 books. He had thousands of students all over the world, several monasteries, thousands of monks, let alone, hundreds of thousands of, probably millions of followers, right? He never rushed. And when you did a walking meditation with him, all he did was walk at a pace that felt good. He just walked in a way that felt nice. And I think if we can find a way to move at a pace that feels good for us, whether that's in conversation, whether that's physical movement, whether that's in your career development, keep moving. I think that's going to lead to a greater sense of well-being and surprise yourself. And I see lots of teenagers at this point, they're pushing themselves really hard because I need to get into an Ivy League. And then when I get into Ivy League, then I can have a good, whatever. And they're pushing themselves so hard to this point where they're unhappy, right? But the thing is, when you create that machine and you push yourself to this extent, when you're working so hard to get the thing, well, then when you get into a school, you're going to get into a school that also expects that much of you. And then that's going to push you you're going to be stuck in that wheel. And then once you get out, you're going to get into a profession that does the same thing. And is that how you want to live the rest of your life? So finding a pace of life that actually makes sense for you. And that actually brings a sense of well-being, and letting go of if I ask for less, then I'm a fool. If I want to get paid less, then I'm a fool. Actually, in making well-being and connection with other people and meaning, the most important thing. And when you put that first, like I'm telling you, so many people that have conversations with or heads of organization or whatnot, it's like when I finally stopped pushing myself to do the stuff that didn't fit, that's when I actually excelled. Because then you have the mental resources, then you're connected to your sort of true self in a different way. And can be more authentic, and people can connect with that. I think that is really essential. And for me, that comes down to finding a natural pace.
I think that's really interesting that you say that people say when they stopped that way of being, they excelled, because I think people often believe the contrary, that, if I stop pushing myself to this extent, then I will stop achieving.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah, I think some really insightful wisdom there and experiences. So yeah, William, thanks so much for coming on. It was amazing
Of
to
course.
hear
Yeah.
that, and much appreciated.
Yeah. Hopefully this will help people develop a fuller focus on what's really important to them.
Yes, it will. I think it will. Thank you, William.